You are already lying down. The room is quiet. The breath you are taking now is the first step. In-out, the world outside your window slows down until even the trees seem to whisper more than they move. Above the ceiling there is sky, and above the sky there are stars, and among those stars is a long, slow hallway made of light. At the end of that hallway, a door waits. It is not a loud door. It does not creak. It opens the way a book opens, softly, patiently, as if it has been waiting for your footsteps all day. Inside is a library that does not end. It rises like a forest and drifts like a cloud. Shelves float a little above the floor. Drawers breathe open and shut like tiny lungs. The air smells like pine sap and paper that has remembered 1,000 nights. Every glowing shelf carries a label written in a hand that is both new and old, ink that looks like midnight, curves that look like river paths. You could read them if you wanted. You do not have to. The library reads you. It listens to the tap of your heart and chooses what you need. A small light begins to move between the shelves. The light is a candle, and the candle is carried by a figure in a simple coat with pockets for pencils, pressed leaves, and secrets that do not sting. The figure is your guide. Some call them the Archivist. Some call them the librarian of sleep. You can call them whatever makes you feel safe. They have a voice like warm cloth and a face you can trust without thinking about why. Welcome, the Archivist says, and the candle bows a little. You are in the dreaming archive. Everything in here belongs to the quiet. Nothing here will chase you. Nothing here will shout. We keep the sharp corners on high shelves. We keep the soft corners close. You walk together. Your steps make a sound like pages turning. The Archivist leads you to a case made of dark wood and soft light. Inside are many drawers with handles shaped like acorns, moons, and tiny triangles that glow but do not glare. Each drawer holds a piece of Gravity Falls that has been polished by time and kindness until it is smooth enough to hold in your palm. Not the parts that hurt, not the parts that break, only the parts that remember, only the parts that rest. The Archivist looks at you, and you feel the question without hearing it. Are you ready? You nod. The candle agrees. It makes a quiet circle on the floor that looks like a night lake. These files are meant for bedtime, the Archivist says. They are not homework. They are not tests. They are lullabies dressed up as stories. You may drift. You may return. You may leave a drawer half open, and that is allowed. The archive is patient. The pines are patient. Tonight we will begin with the beginning that is not a beginning. The first breath the valley took when no one was listening. A memory the trees kept safe in their rings. They reach for the top drawer. The handle is a pinecone carved in soft detail. It is warm like a stone that has been in the sun. The drawer glides open. A smell like rain after a long day of heat floats out and fills the space around your eyes. Between the lid and the light, a story unrolls. It is not too bright. It will not wake you up. It will sit beside you the way a friend sits on a porch step and speaks in a voice that matches the night. Now, the Archivist says with a smile that says, you can rest as much as you want. Let us remember the first pinecone. And the candle leans closer, and the pages begin to turn. Before there were maps pinned to corkboards, before there were signs on the road that told you where you had been, before names became comfortable and stuck to places like small, happy stickers, there was only a valley that hummed. The hum was not a sound you could hear with your ears. It was a feeling the ground had in its bones. A slow note the world held the way you hold a long breath with your eyes closed. The mountains stood around the valley like kind giants. They did not argue with the clouds. They did not hurry the wind. They wore caps of snow that came and went the way old stories come and go, never quite the same, always full of the same calm. Rivers walked down their sides and collected in a broad, patient curve that would one day be called a falls. Not because it fell and frightened anyone, because it folded the river over itself the way a blanket is folded for sleep. The water shushed, the rocks listened, the fern fronds agreed. From far away, a pinecone came. It traveled the way dreams travel, held by a hand no one could see. Maybe it rode the back of a hawk and dropped like a gift. Maybe it bounced in a pocket of wind that laughed without a mouth. Maybe the forest itself took a deep breath and blew a little kiss into the valley. However it came, it arrived like a tiny boat, landing on a quiet shore. It spun once, spun twice. It settled in a patch of soil that had been saving a seat. The soil was dark and soft, woven with roots and threads of old leaves. It remembered rain and remembered sun, and remembered the feet of animals who had passed through with no hurry and no map. The pinecone lay there like a thought the earth was having. It was not in a rush. It did not make a speech. It rested. It listened to the mountain hum and the river hush and the laziness of a sky that did not need to be anything else. Nights stitched themselves to mornings. The moon unrolled and rolled back up. The stars practiced their quiet blinking. When the time was right, a small pale tongue of green touched the air. It was the pinecone's secret, becoming not a secret. It was a sprout, and it was shy. The valley noticed the way a mother notices when a room becomes warmer without a fire. The sprout uncurled. It lifted its little head. A bead of dew sat on it like a crown that did not weigh a thing. A breeze came by with a hello so gentle, it sounded like, Days grew. The sprout became a sapling. The sapling began to remember how to be a tree. It counted the rings it would have one day the way a child counts the steps to a mailbox. 1, 2, 3, and then a little laugh, because numbers do not matter as much as the feeling of roots finding their place. The sapling learned the weather. It met fog and learned that fog is a curtain that does not hide, only softens. It met thunder and learned that thunder is a drum played by faraway friends who never come closer than they should. It met the second twilight, which is not the time after sunset and not the time before night, but the extra layer the valley keeps for itself. A blue folded over another blue. A hush over hush. If you have ever been outside and felt that you were standing in a memory, that was the second twilight, trying on your shoulders like a borrowed shawl. Birds arrived and hung compliments in the branches, like ornaments that could fly. A deer with eyes that understood more than it needed to stop to listen. It nodded, which in the language of the valley means both I see you and we are safe. In the soil, roots met other roots and shook hands, which in the language under the ground means both you can lean on me and we already have. In the air, pollen danced and found company in places it did not plan for. None of it was an accident. None of it was a plan. It was the way the valley loved itself. Time widened. The sapling threw shadows that grew longer and kinder. The tree learned the soft talk of owls at night, and the soft talk of needles in wind, and the soft talk of rain that falls as if it forgot how to be sharp. It watched stars draw and erase thin chalk lines across the sky. It watched the moon get lost and find itself again. It watched the river practice the same easy lesson every day. Go where it is lower. Do not hurry. Shine when someone looks. Shine when no one does. The first pinecone grew big and brown and proud on a branch and then let go. Falling for a pinecone is not really falling. It is remembering how to return to the hand that lifted you up in the first place. It touched down and landed near the place where a younger memory had landed long ago. The ground felt the small weight and adjusted the blanket of moss the way you adjust a pillow without opening your eyes. Another sprout would come, another circle would widen. When voices finally walked into the valley, they came in daytime and in dusk. Boots that made a promise to the ground without meaning to. Lanterns that pooled light the color of honey. The tree listened. It did not judge. It only counted breaths. The people breathed faster than the river. They breathed faster than the clouds. The tree did not mind. It could teach slowness later. One night the second twilight became a little longer. The stars leaned in as if to hear better. The tree heard a sound it had never heard before. It was laughter shaped like courage. It was worry shaped like love. It was human. The tree learned another language in one night. It learned that hands can be clumsy and gentle at the same time. It learned that hearts can be tired and brave at the same time. It learned that the valley had been waiting for this and was not surprised. If the valley had a voice that could be put between two hands and held like a cup, it would have said, "Welcome. There is room." The tree would have said, "I have shade." The river would have said, "I have story." The mountains would have said nothing, which is how mountains say, "We are here." And the first pinecone, which was not the first and would not be the last, rolled a little in its sleep and smiled the way seeds smile when they dream about becoming something that gives shade. The valley hummed. The humming folded into your breath. And somewhere in a library that glows like a secret, a drawer slid a little deeper into the story it was made to keep. The archivist closes the drawer a fingertip's width and lets the candle lift its small star to the next handle. This one is cool. Stone cool. Mountain cool. When it opens, the room becomes the inside of a pocket where someone keeps pebbles they like to touch when they think. You can feel the smoothness before you feel the air. Stones remember in a slow way. They are the long thinkers of the world. They do not brag about it. They sit. They keep. They hold. In the circle of mountains around the valley, the stones have listened to everything. They know each footstep that never hurried. They know each storm that came as a guest and left as a friend. They know the taste of winter and the taste of summer and the taste of that little hour between them when the light is both warm and blue. Beneath the slopes, caves grow like careful thoughts. The walls are old songs with no words, written in the alphabet of drip and dust. Crystals turn the candle's breath into low stars. If you breathe very gently, the cave breathes back. If you place your palm on the wall considers your warmth and returns a folded version of it, as if to say, "I cannot be a hand, but I can be a promise." In some pockets of stone, there are fossils that look like curls frozen in mid-laugh, leaf ribs that learn to be rock without forgetting they were leaves. This is what foundations do. They change and they keep at the same time. Outside, cliffs face the sky as if they have appointments with the moon. Their faces carry maps older than maps. Lines where glaciers whispered goodbye. Lines where water practiced steady handwriting. Lines where the wind drew cartoons and then left them there because the mountain laughed. If you were to climb in your mind, not with your legs, you would find shells of ledge where sunlight pools like tea and lizards blink like short thoughts. You would find shadows that feel cool the way a kind hand does. You would find silence that is not empty. It is full. It is full of wait and watch and this. At the feet of the mountains, the soil becomes a table. Not a hard table. A table that gives a little and loves its job. On the table are scattered the stones the river's polished. Flat ones that fit under skipping thumbs. Round ones that warm and then give their warmth back. In the early days, before names settled into corners, hands began to stack these stones. Not to fight the wind. Not to push back at the valley. To say hello in a way the valley could feel. A few stones made a ring for a small fire to sit safely. The fire spoke. The stones listened. Sparks went up and made small wishes. A few more stones made a step, so a boot could knock softly instead of loudly. The step learned the shape of the foot that used it most, and kept that shape the way a bed keeps the shape of the one who sleeps there. A wall grew where wind needed something to hold on to. Not a big wall, a polite wall. Stones leaned on each other the way friends lean on each other when the talk gets quiet and true. Not all building is a hammer. Sometimes building is a conversation between weight and balance. A hand puts a stone. The stone asks for a friend. The hand finds one. The new stone wants a cousin on its shoulder. The hand agrees. This goes on until there is something you can walk beside and feel less alone. Someone once placed a stone with a little fossil of a fern visible on its face where everyone coming in and everyone going out could touch it for luck. The fern became shiny with love. If a stone could glow from the inside because of being noticed, it would look like that. Above the ground, the mountains watched this careful stacking and did not correct it. They did not thunder. They did not send a boulder to show scale. They accepted the small hello from the small stones and said in their quiet mountain way, yes. Beneath the ground, roots moved around foundations like respectful neighbors. They left space. They offered support. They rapped a little, never too tight. The house of stone and wood would come. The house would stand because the foundation did not fight the land. It listened to it. Sometimes in the evening, when the second twilight poured over the hills like a second cup of tea, a light would bloom in one of those window openings and the mountains would see it. Mountains are not jealous. They keep big lights like sun and moon. But they love small lights, too. There is a special place in a mountain's heart for the first flame behind the first glass. If you stay very still in your mind, you can feel the mountain nod. Yes, someone is home. Yes, the valley has a heartbeat you can see. When storms visited, they came in coats that dragged rain behind them, like long dresses. They did not pound. They placed. They spoke in long sentences over the roof. The foundations weighed the roof down just enough that it did not want to fly away. Stones share their calm. Once a child pressed their ear to the floor during a storm and said they could hear the ground tell a slow story about ocean bones and old time. Perhaps they did. Perhaps that story was also the sound of a kettle and two mugs on a wooden table, and a parent's voice saying, "We will be fine." Foundations are like that. They carry many meanings, and all of them are yes. In a place like Gravity Falls, the stones noticed the other kind of foundation, too. Not the kind under a house, the kind under a promise. You promise to watch the woods with kindness. You promise to let the river be the river. You promise to take only what you can carry in one breath. These are stones inside the chest. They stack up the same way, one then another, until you feel taller even when you are sitting down. When the candle burns very low, it puts a shell of light around each stone in this drawer, and you can see how they belong to each other. A pebble that held a child's hand at the river shore. A brick that watched a doorway for years and never missed a morning. A quartz crystal that sang a song only night moths could hear. A flat river stone that knew the bottom of a pocket for an entire summer and then learned the bottom of a jar for an entire winter. All of them foundations. All of them. Part of the same slow hello the valley says to itself over and over. I am here. I am kind. I am enough. The Archivist rests a palm on the edge of the drawer. Stones first, they whisper. Always a good idea. The candle bobs like a nod. The drawer sighs shut. You can feel the quiet weight it leaves behind, the way a cat leaves behind warmth when it gets up from your lap. It is a good weight. It is the kind that helps you sink into the mattress without sinking into worry. Now, says the Archivist, with the warmest kind of mischief, let us visit the houses that remember. The handle for this drawer is shaped like a key that has decided there is no such thing as locked. When it turns, the smell of wood and dust and cookies you are not supposed to eat yet slips into the room. The light takes the shape of windows on a floor, a line of sun here, a square there, a gentle patch like a sleeping pet over there. Houses know how to place light so that it makes room feel like a lap. In Gravity Falls, buildings are not just boxes. They are friends who learn to sit still. They are storytellers who learn to hold their breath during your part. Even the loudest house is quiet at night. Even the quietest house has a hum that keeps you company. Walls remember backs leaned against them. Doors remember every knock and how much courage it took. Stairs remember every race and every tiptoe. A roof remembers the sound of rain the way a mother remembers the weight of a child, down to the ounce and the hour. The Mystery Shack sits a little sideways on its piece of earth, the way a hat sits on a head when the hat and the head agree not to be boring. During the day, it grins. The signs wink. The red letters glow. People come and go, and everyone leaves with a story, even if all they did was laugh at a jar of something that looked back. At night, the shack hums. Not a sales hum, a home hum. The neon breathes in and out, softer like a sleeping firefly. The porch boards loosen their shoelaces. The bell above the door makes the most polite sound a bell can make, just once, to say goodnight to itself. Inside, the floorboards know how to hold secrets without making them heavy. If you put your ear to them, you will hear only what you need. The workbench in the back room knows the weight of projects that were started with a smile and finished with a bigger smile. Screwdrivers and old coffee cans, nails that have heard every joke, a jar of buttons that used to be a jar of something else because the label still says peaches, even though it has not seen a peach in 10 summers. Seuss's laugh is still in the grain of the wood, tucked like sunshine in late afternoon. He laughs with his whole self, and shelves remember this because they feel it. Up the stairs, a room where yarn has been a sky for more than one dream. Mabel's sweaters stack into a soft wall a person can lean on and find glitter in their hair for days. There is a bed that knows how to catch you when you fall asleep mid-sentence. There is a lamp that believes in light the way a friend believes in you. There are drawings on paper that seem to shift when you look away and back again. Not because they are magic, but because your eyes and your heart are. Good houses do this. They make your own kindness look like it is coming from the walls when really it is coming from you. Another room has a desk. On it, a book that wants to be a door and a pen that wants to be a lantern. Dipper's chair creaks in a way that means hello. The window shows trees that practice being still so he can practice being brave. There's a jar with a moth wing in it. Not a whole moth. Just a wing someone found, admired, thanked, and returned to the circle of things. A string map on the wall looks sharp in the daylight and soft at night, the way anything looks softer when it knows you are trying your best. Houses know this about you. They offer corners for your trying, places to set it down at evening. places to pick it back up in the morning. On the kitchen table, a plate with a tiny chip on the edge that has been part of the family for so long it is the same as a dimple on a cheek. Chairs that remember elbows and stories. A curtain that floats when a kind wind passes by as if bowing. A refrigerator door that wears magnets like medals, humming from the coils below. Humming from the clock over the sink. Humming from your own chest as you stand there drinking water and feeling the cool slide down and settle. Houses that remember are good at humming with you. They help you find the note. Not only the shack remembers. A cabin at the edge of the town remembers a porch where letters were read slowly, out loud, because the words were heavy and deserved to be set down like bread. A barn remembers the way dust looks in a sunbeam and the way hay smells like summer you can hold. A room above the diner remembers a window you can climb out of when you need to feel the roof under you, and the sky over you, and the middle part of you getting bigger because it holds both. There is a bell tower. In the day it counts the town's breaths. At night it counts the stars. The stairs inside curl up like a sleeping cat. Your footsteps echo in a friendly way. Not the way echoes do in empty places, but the way echoes do when a place is full of listening. At the top, the bell speaks one word at a time and then goes back to keeping its thoughts. The walls up there hold names carved back when carving a name into wood was how you told the future that you planned to still be here when it arrived. Houses keep these names. They dust them with shadow and give them back a little glow each night. Even shops sleep. The pawn shop dreams of second chances. The ice cream stand dreams of summer hands and bright spoons and a child laughing because the cone is taller than good sense. The post office dreams of letters crossing bridges of air and setting down like seeds on the right porch. The school dreams of chalk dust, and the last day of term where everything feels like a stretch. Streets are houses, too, in their own way. They remember bicycles and goodbyes and dogs who know exactly where home is without knowing why they know. Every home in Gravity Falls has a special place where the night gathers and puts itself down for a while. A windowsill with a smooth stone. A shelf with a bowl that holds 2 keys and a feather. A corner where plants lean toward the moon for the pleasure of it. The house knows to put moonlight there and keep it there a second longer than everywhere else. It feels like the house saying, "This is the softest part of me. This is for you." Sometimes, when everyone is asleep, houses talk to each other, not in words, in how they settle, in how they breathe, in how their pipes clink like ice in a glass, and their beams answer with a tiny, warm groan. The sound of wood that has spent the day holding and is now letting go a little. The shack tells the barn about a joke it heard from a tourist who did not know anyone was listening. The barn tells the shack about the owl that landed on its roof and looked like a piece of night with 2 ideas. The bell tower says 3 in a voice too soft to be a number. The diner answers by keeping 1 neon letter on as a nightlight for the whole block. You might think houses only keep the big moments. The day someone arrived, the day someone left, the day a message slid under a door and made the air change. They keep those. But what they love best are the ordinary smalls. The 6th step that always asks for a little extra knee. The click of the lamp switch. The exact way a certain sweatshirt smells after a day full of trees. The line of shoes by the door that proves a day happened and was kind. Houses are rich with smalls. They hoard them, but not to keep them from you. To keep them safe for you. When it storms, houses sing with the rain. Roofs drum. Gutters hum. Windows draw wet pictures and then wipe them away. Inside, the air tastes like soup and electric hope. The good kind. The kind that says, we will watch the weather together. The house keeps the thunder far and translates it into purr. In the morning, the house smells like a clean slate. Even if nothing changes, that smell lets you believe it could easily, gently, when you are ready. The Archivist lets the drawer stay open a little longer than the others. They know people like this one. People see themselves in rooms that remember them. You can feel the bed you will lie in, later already making a spot for you. You can feel the pillow deciding to be cool on one side and warm on the other. You can feel the door to your room practicing the perfect amount of quiet to close with. It is a good feeling. It tastes like a sigh. Finally, the Archivist touches the key-shaped handle, and the drawer closes with a satisfaction that does not need to be loud. Houses keep us, they say. We keep them too with our being here. The candle nods again at little pleased Bob, and throws a brief silver coin of light onto the floor, the exact shape of a nightlight left on in a hallway so that someone who wakes in the dark can find their way to water and then back to the warmest part of the blanket. Shall we continue? The Archivist asked, already turning toward the next memory. You do not have to answer. Your breath answers for you. In, out. The archive hears it and smiles. The pines beyond the library smile too, tall, patient, glad to wait for as many chapters as you need. The next handle is carved like a little paw, though not from any animal you could take a picture of. When the Archivist draws the drawer open, the candle lifts and the room smells faintly of moss after rain and a berry pie cooling somewhere you can't quite see. A breeze that isn't a breeze ruffles the edges of the pages inside. You understand without being told. This file belongs to the ones who live here without needing roads or names on mailboxes. It belongs to the gentle inhabitants of the in-between. They arrive the way dreams do, already halfway here, already friendly. First you meet the gnomes, though meet is too formal for beings who prefer to be discovered like a joke you were going to make anyway. Imagine a cluster of little hats moving like a berry patch that decided to walk. Imagine beards that keep crumbs of festivals past. They are chorus more than characters, committee more than king. At dusk they gather in circles small enough to fit on a tree stump and large enough to hold a town meeting in a teacup. They debate the urgent matters of the forest, whether strawberry is more red at sunrise or at sunset, whether the moon prefers to be called Luna in spring, whether friendship counts as a superpower. They have voted yes for 19 summers straight. When they wave, their hands are as light as moths. When they argue, it sounds like wind in clover. They mean no harm except to loneliness. They are very bad for loneliness. Edge of clearing, breath of pine. A deer steps out. 2 eyes, then a blink, then, oh, another pair. Set a little higher, shining like buttons stitched on by a careful night. 4 eyes means extra seeing, not extra judging. This deer knows paths you haven't earned yet. It measures your heart by how quiet you can become. Stand still. That's it. Let your shoulders remember the shape of listening. The deer nods, which is permission and blessing and a tiny lesson. Then it melts back into trees, leaving behind the idea that maybe there are 4 ways to look at anything, and all of them are kind. By the river, a shape loosens from a fallen log, becomes a raccoon, becomes a log again, becomes a ripple. The shapeshifter is not a trickster tonight. It is a story sponge, soaking up what the day dripped. A child's laugh, the slap of a skipping stone that did not want to stop, the sigh of a fisherman who enjoys the quiet more than the catching. The shapeshifter keeps these sounds safe, then squeezes them back into the night in slower form so we can fall asleep to them. If you ever wake and think your room has changed its mind about where the corners are, don't worry. The shapeshifter is just adjusting the edges of your dream so they won't press. Someone once wrote manitors as if a shout required antlers. Here on this shelf, they soften into big-shouldered uncles of the woods who carry logs like lullabies and set them down with a care that says, weight can be heavy and gentle at the same time. If you ask them for a task at midnight, they'll give you one appropriate for bedtime. Count sap drips, polish acorns, watch the horizon for the first rumor of morning. Every victory is measured in yawns achieved. High above, an owl sails on silence. It has been saving all day. Its face is everything that is round about the moon. If you speak to it, speak in questions that do not need answers. The owl's job is to hold the unanswered things until they become music. If there ever was a secret in this forest, it lives behind the owl's eyes, and it is not a corridor. It is a crib. Under a fern, something flutters, moth wings with little lanterns stitched along the edges by a tailor who only sews in twilight. They halo the moss in a way that saves you from wishing for a flashlight. The moths keep a calendar by how many flowers hum when they sip. The flowers do hum, very softly, in a key the river approves of. A frog the color of an unripe idea plops onto a stone. It looks at you like a librarian looks at a question she loves to answer. The frog knows the difference between noise and note. When thunder walks the long path over the hills, the frog counts, then sings the number back to the pond, and the pond translates it into rings that show minnows where to dance. And then, barely there, a little triangular glint between two leaves. No, not that triangle. Not a deal-making shape or a grin that wants your wish. This one is a friendly warning sign left by a very old beetle clan. Careful, new mushrooms ahead. They mark their paths for each other with tiny geometry. If you step over their sign, it whispers, "Thanks," in a dialect only ears-wearing moss can hear. The Archivist lets the creatures arrive and depart without fanfare, like guests at a party where the host is not a person but quiet. Between dreams, they murmur, is where most things prefer to live. The candle does not flicker. The flame listens. So do you. The drawer closes and you realize your heartbeat has found the tempo of crickets you have never met and already miss. A drawer banded in red twine slides open, and the temperature of the room changes the way a lap changes when a cat curls into it. The glow inside isn't bright. It's page lights, lantern light, the particular hush that happens when ink dries. Here the journals are not only books, they are rooms you can enter. They are windows that learn to be doors because curiosity asks nicely. The first book opens itself to a page that smells faintly of graphite and riverbank. A diagram is there. Stars connected by lines that will make sense in 7 minutes and feel inevitable in 8. In the margin, a question mark with patience. On the lower right corner, a smear of pine gum from a night when the author turned pages with hands that had just touched a tree on purpose. The smear has fossilized into agreement. Trees and notes belong together. If you lean down, you hear the quiet chorus of penciled observations adding up to a personality. Not rush, not boast, not rumor. Witness. A leaf taped in on page 42 has browned into the exact color of last October. Next to it, a sketch of a footstep that decided to be a clue. The caption does not accuse, it invites. Found near the bridge at moonrise. Weight uncertain. Direction. Toward the sound of something that didn't need to be named. Turn a page, and the ink shifts to invisible. The journal prefers to reveal it like weather, slowly, according to the warmth of your hands. Letters float up, their edges softened by the kind of secrets that aren't secrets at all, only truths that arrive at the speed of trust. You read a sentence that feels like a lantern carried level. If we are quiet, the forest tells us which questions are friendly. You nod without meaning to. Your neck knows this is true. Another book within the drawer has pages that crinkle the way a fire thinks. Tape here, thread there. A map was added, then subtracted, then added back with different arrows. The map is not the forest. It's a conversation the forest is willing to have. Red string crosses itself so politely, you want to apologize for every knot you tied too tight in your life. There are pages that only open halfway, like doors meant for cats. The journals are careful with their mysteries. They assume the reader wants to sleep and will therefore leave some corridors for tomorrow, for next summer, for the kind of morning when coffee and courage are the same temperature. In a tiny envelope glued to the back flyleaf, you find three things: a single curled pine needle, a grain of sand that remembers being part of a glass bottle, that remembers being part of a laugh, and a paper star cut by a hand much smaller than the rest of the handwriting here. The star has glitter that refuses to be quiet. The journals do not mind. They have room for both the measured and the messy. They know that data and delight share a root in doing. On an index card, a list of field rules amended by use. Pencil first. Pens pretend to know the future. Eat before the hard parts, sleep before the harder ones. Write what you saw, then what you felt, then the thing you almost did and didn't. If a code appears, let it be a lullaby before you make it a lock. Ask the river to sign your conclusions. Somewhere in the middle of a volume with a torn cloth spine, a pocket hides a pressed flower with a scent like good endings. Under it, a note from a future self to a past self that is also a note to you. It says only, "You were right to come here." The archivist watches you read the way a friend watches you taste the soup that has been simmering all afternoon. They do not interrupt. When you finally close the cover, the book warms your palms 1 degree above room temperature. One day, the archivist whispers, we will open the page about the night the sky wrote back. The candle leans close as if peeking. The drawer slides shut with a confidence made of thread and thought. A brass hook holds this drawer shut until the archivist smiles at it. Then it swings open and the room becomes twilight, steady blue, the second cup of evening poured without spilling. From the drawer's lip, a procession of tiny lights begins. Fireflies, jar lanterns, glow of old signs that forgot how to brag, little moons curled inside glass. The forest keeps roads that aren't lines on a map. They are lines of glow, lantern roads. They wake when you whisper please and vanish if you run. Tonight they have chosen to appear. You start at the shack's porch where a jar waits by the door. It has captured yesterday's sunlight and taught it to behave. You lift it, and the handle makes your palm think of bicycle handles in June. Down the steps, past the bell that says, shh, onto the path that remembers every foot that took it softly. Around the first bend, lightning bugs hold a council. They flash in patient order, 1, 2, 3, pause, then 4, 5, 6, long pause. If you copy them with your breath, inhale 6, release 6, the path widens to let another person walk beside you, even if the other person is tomorrow morning. Lantern roads make time into company. A low branch offers you another light. A paper lantern cut into the shape of a pine cone, stitched with wires so thin it might be a hair from the moon. Someone crafted it, then left it here for whoever needed it next. That is the etiquette of the lantern road. Take for a while, leave for a while, everything circles back. There's a table at the edge of the clearing with a note. No ink, just twigs. That spells the oldest rule. Kind first. The bridge across the river waits with its own lamps, amber globes that never try to be stars. They accept being bridge light with a contentment that teaches you about jobs and wanting. When you step onto the wood, there is a chord underneath you, long, low, the note of creek, plus the note of pine, plus the note of souls worn honest. If you look over the rail, you will see sky twice, above and below. The river likes to practice being sky when night gives permission. Halfway across, you stop. Not a decision. A reflex. The lamps throw your shadow into the water where it floats like a leaf deciding not to sink. The frog choir keeps tempo. Somewhere a late diner turns its neon from statement to whisper, a single letter left on as a lighthouse for insomniacs and line cooks on smoke breaks and the bell tower which pretends not to care and actually cares very much. On the far bank, a row of lanterns begins to move. Not wind, hands, down hands. The lantern walk. It's the old tradition nobody remembers how to spell, but everybody knows how to do. People who have no reason to be awake at the same time decide to be, gently for no prize. They carry light to the lake. They set it on the water. The lake accepts like a good host. Come in, sit anywhere. Tell me your smallest story. Points of light move out, drift, find each other, separate, recombine. If you are afraid of big conclusions, watch the lanterns. They are what happens instead. An elder in a moth-bitten sweater walks past you, a child on her hip, an empty jar in the child's hand. The elder nods with the exact weight of lamplight. The child holds up the jar the way a knight holds up a promise. You fall into step because some roads are invitations disguised as scenery. Fireflies above, lanterns below, your jar in your hand. This is how a town glows without electricity. This is how a forest learns the names of the people who love it. And the people learn that the forest loves them back. Rules of the lantern road come toward you, written on night air. If you find a light, you are trusted. If you carry a light, you are home. If you lose your light, lift your hands. Someone will share. When the last lantern's circle of gold touches the cattails, the Archivist clears their throat. Just once, crease of a smile in the sound. We will leave them, they say. We have another path to trace. The drawer dims by degrees, never all at once, like a room that knows you are leaving but doesn't want to hurry your goodbye. The brass hook catches. The night in the room remains, tucking itself into the corners like a cat that likes to be near people without getting involved. A compass rose is etched into the next handle, each point a pine needle. When the drawer opens, the ceiling above you learns how to be sky. Stars aren't brighter, they're nearer, which is better. On a table that wasn't there a second ago, a field notebook, pencil with bite marks, a mug that has decided to be mostly steam, a small brass instrument that is half protractor, half wish. Dipper sits in the chair that every mapmaker eventually invents. The one that lets you lean over the whole world without falling into it. He doesn't see us. That is a kindness. He is not being watched tonight. He is being accompanied. He's mapping. Not borders. That's for days. Nights deserve routes made of marvel. He plots the slowness of the Big Dipper, sliding from fur to fur across 3 weeks. He sketches the triangle that appears between 2 stubborn stars in the bell tower's midnight shadow when you stand in exactly the right place. He draws the river, not as it is, but as it reflects, because reflection is how the night tells the truth, without smudging anyone. In the margins, notes to himself that sound like notes to you. Constellations are the forest handwriting for people who need a sky version of notebooks. If you get lost, make your own names. The universe accepts aliases. When you can't decide where to go, follow the quietest thing that is still bright. He pauses, listens. That's the difference between good maps and loud ones. Someone listened first. He hears a branch remember a bird. He hears the diner's neon blinking a lullaby nobody paid for and everybody uses. He hears his own breath sink with the hill's long inhale. Then the pencil moves again, between two stars that haven't met yet on paper and will never forget each other once they do. The journal. Tonight it is a star atlas lies open to a page you will dream of and forget on purpose. Dipper has gridded it in a light pencil, tiny numbers along the edge so faint they're shy. He likes shy numbers. They're the ones that turn out to matter. Over the grid, he's sketched the outline of a pine bough and tucked coordinates into the spaces between needles. He doesn't call it art because he is busy, but it is. Sometimes he checks his work with a homemade tool, a circle of cardboard, a thumbtack in the middle, thread stretched to a knot. He holds it up to the sky, counts, measures. The thread hums a little. Or maybe that's his thinking. He tries 3 versions of a line. He erases 2. The shavings look like brown comets on the table. There is bravery here, but it is bedtime bravery, the kind that keeps a light small on purpose, so the dark can still be itself. The kind that says, "I don't know," out loud, and then gets quieter so the world has room to answer. The kind that walks to the edge of a thing and sits down rather than jumping. We talk a lot about boldness as a shout. Dipper's comes with a blanket and a thermos. The Archivist places, without touching, a ghostly hand above the boy's shoulder. The shape of guidance, not the weight. Cartographers, they murmur. Write lullabies for people who haven't gotten there yet. The candle drifts up, dots a star with its tip. And that dot stays when the candle moves away, which is a magic no one will record because it only works when you plan to sleep soon. When Dipper leans back and the chair makes its small agreement sound, the map is not done. Maps like this are never done. They are pauses with edges. He closes the notebook softly, like you close a thought you'll finish in the morning. The drawer closes the same way. The sky remembers to be sealing again without losing any stars. You could spot this handle in a dark room. It's wrapped in yarn, the colors of parade candy, and summer market fruit. When the Archivist pulls, the drawer opens with a tiny cascade sound. Buttons, sequins, beads, all finding their polite corners. The air smells like warm acrylic, hot glue that made its point, and sugar that decided to be glitter. Mabel does not enter the archive. She bursts into it, and then remembers this is a library of sleep and lowers herself to a burst whisper. Her presence is gravity for joy. The candle brightens because it likes to. Instead of pages, this drawer holds swatches, squares and stars, sleeve cuffs that learn the shape of elbows while watching constellations, collars that sat at the edge of gasps, a sweater with a llama that has always been on the verge of telling a joke and will tell it the first time you wear it in a room that needs it, another with a shooting star that actually shoots, not with light, but with the little zing your chest makes when someone is unreasonably kind to you. Mabel spreads them like a night sky set at child height, where adults are allowed if they remember how. She points with both hands because one hand is never enough for enthusiasm done right. "Okay," she says. "To the sweaters, to us, to the pine trees that always eavesdrop. Connect the sparkles." And suddenly the beads are stars. The sequins are nebula. The pom-poms become planets that refuse to be weighed. She draws constellations, the way she makes friends, quickly, sincerely, in shapes you didn't know were allowed. A wavy line between two glitter clusters. That's the smile. A triangle that would be a warning marker in any other chapter becomes 3 nice things you thought today. A messy spiral, the whirlpool of craft supplies that somehow solves the plot. She remembers names that maps forget. The giggle belt wraps around everything that takes itself too seriously. The comforter, always above you when you need nap weather. The ta-da, visible only after finished projects and for 20 minutes after surprise cake. She stitches stories between them with yarn that behaves like sentences. Loop, loop, tug, tug. The needle winks. The thread doesn't snag because there's no such thing as a snag in a story that makes room. Where Dipper's star map teaches you to navigate, Mabel's sweater sky teaches you to decorate the trip. She doesn't replace his coordinates. She frames them in warmth. If there is a cold corner in the cosmos, she throws a cardigan over it and then adds elbow patches shaped like hearts, because elbows do a lot of work and should feel loved. On one square, she's knit a little window with curtains. Behind the knit window, she has stitched an even smaller pocket. In the pocket is a paper note that says, "You can be soft and still be strong." The paper has glitter. You'll find glitter on your thumb later and not mine. That is how this magic travels. There's a sweater here that has been worn so often, it remembers a hug before you give it. It has seen tears and absorbed them into a pattern no one else can see. Comfort charted in quiet rows. It is the opposite of armor and works better. If you wear it on a hard day, strangers will be nicer to you without knowing why. The sweater is doing introductions on your behalf. "Hi, this is a kind person. Please return same." Mabel ties a friendship bracelet directly around a star pin. You aren't supposed to tie things to stars, and yet you are, if you ask first and leave enough slack for shining. She knows how to leave slack. She knows that tugs happen, and that tight is not the same as safe. The bracelet's colors are the mural of a summer spent right. She flips a switch that wasn't there. A black light hums. The thread sings back. Secret messages bloom on the stitches. Tiny affirmations embroidered in a shade that needs night to show. You did enough. You are someone's favorite story. Drink water. The last one is practical. Magic needs practical. It frays without it. Before the drawer closes, Mabel tucks something into it for later readers. A small bag of star confetti punched from old greeting cards and failed glitter experiments. On the bag, a label in bubble letters, "Emergency Sky for Inside Days." The archivist pretends to be stern and is actually delighted. The candle, which has behaved admirably, leans toward a sequined moon and comes away sparkling at the tip for one instant before remembering it is fire. Warmth is a map, too, the archivist says, easing the drawer home. The yarn handle glows for a heartbeat after it is no longer lighted, the way cheeks do after laughter. The room settles. Your breath finds the slow lane again. Outside the archive, in a town that hums like a lullaby that learned to walk, stars arrange themselves into a new pattern you won't have to memorize. Between the careful lines plotted at a desk and the joyful stitches thrown into a sky, there is space that feels like a bed made this morning and somehow still warm. That is where you are. That is where we'll continue from. Next drawer, next chapter, without hurry. The next drawer wears a doorknob for a handle. Brass, round, friendly, and turns with the exact resistance of a memory that wants to be told slowly. Inside, the light takes on a warm shop lamp color, a patient amber that makes every surface look understood. The air smells faintly of cedar, solder, and the sugar dust of a donut someone meant to eat later and forgot on purpose. This is the shack's workshop as it becomes after hours. Daytime tools have stage names: hammer, socket set, driver bits. But at night they go by their softer nicknames. The hammer answers to thump. The sockets prefer click. The driver bits like the sound of themselves settling, a small metallic yes. On the pegboard, outlines of wrenches hold them in place, even when the wrenches are out doing kindness. Chalk marks don't mind being empty. They believe in return. Suze moves through the room with the gravity of someone who knows where everything goes and why. His steps are careful without being careful-looking. The shop recognizes him the way a tuned instrument recognizes the hand that knows its notes. He hums. The bench hums back one octave lower. That's how places and people agree. On the bench, a broken radio that still remembers the song it was playing when it gave up pretending it was fine. Suze opens the back with a screwdriver that has scraped a lot of Mondays into Fridays. Inside, wires rest like sleepy vines. He doesn't tug. He invites. The soldering iron breathes a wobble of heat. A little reel of tin listens for its cue. When the joint brightens and smooths, the smell in the room changes, and that good way fixes do. Like rain after dust. Like floor after mop. Like a thought finally finding its shelf. Across from the radio, a wooden toy missing a wheel. The missing wheel sits 3 inches away as if it took itself off to see how much it mattered and decided to come back. Suze lines up the axle and rolls the wheel on with his thumb. The toy tests the distance from bench vise to toolbox, a straight line, satisfied. He leaves it there to learn the room's night sounds. The tick of the cooling lamp, the slow breath of the mini-fridge, the gentle chatter of a jar of bolts trading biographies. On a high shelf sits a coffee can labeled Spare Magic, Do Not Drink. Inside, nothing you can pour, a rubber band that never snaps, 2 screws that fit everything, a copper washer that turns squeaks into please, a coin that always lands on try again. He takes nothing out. It's enough to know it's there. If you listen, the workshop teaches a particular theology of usefulness. It says, broken is a phase. It says, the right tool is patience plus a thing that fits in your hand. It says, measure twice, forgive yourself the third. In the corner, a broom leans in to hear better. Clean is a cousin of fixed, not apparent. And the broom is okay with that. Pinned to the corkboard, a list written in thick marker. Check the step that groans like a ghost. It's just proud. Oil the hinge that sounds like a question you don't want to answer. You can answer. Tighten the bolt under the bell because it loosens when the wind remembers jokes. Let it laugh, then tighten. Put an extra nail in the railing where small hands stop to look at the lake. Small hands first. There's a photograph tucked under the list. Corners curling, of a boy in a paper crown standing beside an engine that decided not to quit that summer. In the photo, someone tall is just off frame, a hand on a shoulder you can't see, but you can feel. The workshop carries that feeling the way shelves carry jars, openly, without drama. Suze checks the soda machine because he always does. The machine hums like it wants to be helpful. Sometimes it is a door. Tonight, it is just a machine, which is also a form of miracle. He cleans the coin slot with a folded corner of shop towel, the same gesture every time. Gentle, precise, unhurried. The towel knows the crease by heart now. Ritual's a tool, too. A clock on the wall mistakes itself for a drummer. Suze taps the bench once, and the clock settles into a slower beat. The room agrees. He picks up a tiny bulb between forefinger and thumb, turns it toward the lamp, looks for the faint thread inside, the one that glows when nothing else wants to. The filament is whole. He smiles like a person who just found the word he was missing and decides not to say it out loud. Some fixes are private victories. The bench nods, a soft acquiescence in wood grain. If you tilt your ear toward the floor, you hear another workshop layered beneath this one. Older, quieter, all the benches and tools this bench and these tools remember. a jar of nails from a different decade that once solved a problem by simply being plentiful. A vice that held 3,000 things steady without once asking what they were. A wrench that bit its own knuckle and didn't complain. The history of fixing is mostly the history of showing up. So's keeps a notebook too, not the same kind as Dipper's. Fewer monsters, more measurements, but the same warm pencil. Entries like, doorbell lagged 1.5 seconds tonight. Could be weather. Could be telling jokes. Watch. Left porch board carries more than its share, probably, because people stop there to make up their minds. Added a sister beam. Everyone has a sister beam. Neon in the your one's attention. We'll give it a minute tomorrow with the tiny brush and the patient's voice. He closes the notebook with his palm, center pressed, edge patted. The gesture says keep, like you do with a story worth telling again. Sometimes a small visitor appears just inside the door. A mouse with the workshop manners or a moth interested in the halo a lamp throws. Suze greets them both the same way he greets bad screws and good friends. Hey, buddy. He opens the window for the moth when it's time. He leaves a crumb for the mouse and a note that says, not the wiring, please. They obey. The workshop's night treaty stands. Before he leaves, he turns a single knob on the bench radio. The repaired tune returns in the lowest voice, a hum the room can wear without looking like it wants attention. It's the kind of music that sands edges from inside you. On the door frame, hash marks note heights from summers that felt taller than others. He adds none. Tonight is not a measuring night. It's a keeping night. When he clicks off the lamp, the filament glows a heartbeat longer and then trusts the dark. The candle tips a small salute. The archivist glides the drawer closed with the exact pressure Seuss uses when a lid wants to squeak and he won't let it. The room you're in picks up the workshop's lesson and holds your edges a little smoother than before. This handle is a braided leather loop that has known weather. The drawer opens in a breath of cold air that doesn't bite. It wakes. Pine pitch rides the breeze like a note that lingered because it liked the echo. You step into tree shadow hilltop, sky wide enough to slow your ideas until they land in one piece. Wendy is here the way wind is here, present even when you think you're alone. She's not performing at this hour. She's collecting her day and setting it down where morning will find it. Boots crossed at the ankle, back against a stump that has been saving this exact shape for her. Hat brim pulled low enough to borrow a shade from the moon. She carries tools that turn into toys and toys that turn into tools, a pocket knife that's whittled as many sticks into quiet as it has solved problems, a length of paracord that knows 3 knots by muscle memory and 2 by luck, a lighter that, when flicked, holds fire as carefully as a promise. She rarely needs any of it. Knowing she could is the point. Around her, the pines stand the way tall friends stand at the back of a crowded room, leave space, see everything, step in only when asked. Wind writes on their needles in a script you can't read and don't need to. It says, you got time. It says, keep your shoulders down. It says, nobody here is counting how long it takes to feel okay. Wendy looks up, then out. Stars snag on her eyelashes because eyelashes are small nets for wonder if you let them be. She doesn't sort the constellations. She groups them by vibe. That cluster over the diner is after-shift laugh. The one over the old logging road is we'll fix it tomorrow. The ribbon above the roofline of the shack is stairs at midnight on tiptoe. None of these appear in charts. All of them help you get home. Below the hill, town lights do that polite thing they do at this hour. Glow enough to be found, not enough to be loud. The bell tower, coy, pretends it's only for the day crowd. It has, however, been known to give her a private single chime when she looks at it just so. She won't tell. The tower won't either. That's the most Gravity Falls kind of friendship. Competence plus a secret nobody needs to keep. Wendy stretches and the night accommodates, as if someone added sky above her so she wouldn't bump into the lid of the world. She counts down from nothing in no particular order. In her head, a list of things she knows that don't need proving. Axes don't require speeches. A thermos tastes better if you pour for somebody else first. If you go up, you should be the one to check the ladder on the way down. Quiet doesn't equal empty. Quiet equals earned. She's the kind of brave that looks like ease because it's been practiced in small, unphotographable ways. The kind that keeps walking when a trail goes thin. The kind that sits down when sitting down is the smarter version of standing. The kind that says, when someone asks for a story, you had to be there, and then make sure you are next time. To the Pines, she is a seasonal they understand, reliable, a return they count on. When she passes, they tilt a little, not to shade her. They know she doesn't want fussy, but to loan her a piece of their unbothered. If you could carry unbothered in your jacket pocket, it would feel like a pine cone found at the exact right moment to give your hand something to do. On a stump beside her, someone scratched initials years ago, and someone else smoothed them with a pocket knife, because edges aren't always the point. Wendy runs a thumb over the worn place and decides not to add anything. It's complete the way a story can be done without being done forever. Sometimes a fox stops by, sits without looking at her, the old agreement between equals. I won't spook you if you won't spook me. Once a crow brought something shiny, a bottle cap that had traveled from a city 90 highways away, dropped it, and made a sound like a joke about treasure. She laughed the laugh that makes animals stay. The crow took the cap back, not offended. Transaction complete. You keep your shinies, I keep my evening. If she closes her eyes, she can name the trees by their particular creaks. The old one near the ravine talks in baritone. The skinny guy that leans a little because his roots hit a rock early speaks in a tenor that whines if you're not fond of it and sings if you are. The cluster just off the path harmonizes because friends do. Down in town, a window clicks dark. A porch light clicks on. Somewhere a gate latches itself and then unlatches because it remembered it prefers to swing. Wendy hears all of it and categorizes none. It adds up to a ledger with one word on both sides, okay. When she stands, the night adjusts so her legs don't feel like they fell asleep. She knocks a little bark from her jeans, tree glitter, and dusts her palms on her jacket like she's paying the forest a tip. Thanks, she says to everything and no one. Gratitude looks good on her because it doesn't try to be a lesson. She heads down trail without flashlight. The path remembers her feet. Pine needles do that soft crunch, the one every person who's ever stayed out a little too late and not regretted. It keeps in their pocket for the bad days. At the bottom of the hill, she pauses and lets the last of the high air leave her lungs so she can fit into the warm parts of town again. This is a real skill. They don't teach it in school. The drawer closes with a breeze that knows where it is going. The candle dips as if a hat were being tipped back. The archivist's smile is the color of a cabin porch at 5 a.m, when the fog hasn't decided whether to go or stay, and you don't make it decide. Somewhere the pines say the thing they always say about Wendy. That one's on our side. A triangle is etched into this handle, not as a warning, but as geometry. When the drawer opens, the room becomes a chalkboard the sky decided to use. Lines shimmer, faint and reversible. Nothing here is a deal. Everything here is a diagram. The archivist clears their throat, not to be serious, but to be careful. Sharp shapes, they say softly, belong on high shelves. We look, we learn, we do not touch the parts that want to be touched back. The candle brightens to steady light and then settles because bedtime can host clarity too. Above you, a constellation arranges itself into a triangle with an eye. Only it isn't an eye. It's an aperture, the opening in a camera that decides how much light to let through. Around it, tiny glyphs hover like notes scribbled in the margins of the universe. Arrows, circles, little lines that point at nothing in particular until something particular happens. If this were daytime, it would feel like puzzle hunger. Tonight, it feels like pattern without pressure. You trace the edges with your gaze. Each corner steadies. Each side balances. Triangles are honest about their strength. They don't wobble unless asked. In a notebook that exists only for the next few minutes, someone has written, "A triangle is the simplest net that holds space." Add an eye and you get attention. Attention is not the same as intent. In a dream library, we turn riddles into lullabies by turning speed into patience. A memory passes through, swift, colorful, loud, then keeps going. The archive watched it, filed the edges, and saved a silhouette. The silhouette is safe to handle. It is the shape of curiosity, with the teeth tucked away. You can hold it up to the light and study the way symbols lean toward each other when no one is pushing. Triangles show up everywhere once you let them. Roof trusses, mountain faces, a folded note, a slice of pie. They are the bones of stability. The constellated triangle above you is not a person. It is a reminder that certain shapes have a way of persuading you they mean more than they do. You get to choose what that more is. In this chapter, it is simply, remember your corners. They help you keep your balance around ideas that like to spin. The archivist draws a line in the air with a fingertip. It becomes a thread of light and ties two stars together. Then another line, and another star joins. A triangle forms that is not the triangle you feared. This one has a missing side on purpose, so that what passes through can pass out again. Vent, the archivist says. Every pattern should breathe. Along the edges, small ciphers drift, as if they're looking for friends. A Caesar shift, with nothing to shift yet. A substitution that hasn't met its swap. A backward sentence that isn't hiding, just stretching. In daylight, these would dare you. Tonight they invite, decode me later or never. Either is valid. Bedtime learns by osmosis. If you listen carefully, you can hear a sound like a deck of cards being shuffled very slowly. That's how ideas organize themselves when no one is rushing them into revelations. The triangle's center brightens, not to blind, to hint. Inside, there's a picture that refuses to resolve into a single meaning. It offers three at once, like honest choices. Treat strangeness like weather. Notice, prepare, don't panic. Treat symbols like spice. A pinch is plenty at night. Treat your mind like a porch light. On for you, not for every moth. The candle nods at each, a tiny arc of agreement. The archivist places a translucent cover over the chalk sky. The lines stay, faint as memory, available as needed. We honor riddles, they murmur, by refusing to let them rearrange our kindness. In this drawer, triangles are for tents and kites. Eyes are for watching stars, not for being watched. A paper triangle slips from the air to the drawer's lip. A folded fortune teller from a grade school recess. The flaps read, sweet, salt, sour, sleep. You open sleep. Underneath, count from corner to corner. By the time you finish, you'll be on the other side of worry. You smile the way you do when a small joke is also true. The constellation exhales. The chalkboard becomes sky again, sky becomes ceiling, ceiling becomes the room that has been kind to you since you lay down. The archivist closes the puzzle with both hands, palms together, as if returning a paper plane to flight. The candle keeps a modest point of light, enough to say, "See? You looked, you learned, you stayed whole." This drawer slides open, and the library becomes sound without noise. A breeze lifts the pages of silence and lays them down in measures. You stand on the shore of the river that gives the town its last name, and it gives you a first song. The falls don't crash at night. They fold. Water pours itself over water like a blanket being tucked. Corners neat. Edges smoothed with a hand that has done this 1,000 nights and will do it 1,000 more. The sound is wide and even, a ribbon you can lay your thinking on to iron it flat. It has verses, eddies that mutter, rivulets that rhyme, a deeper baritone where the current finds an old channel and says here, always here. Underneath the main hymn, stones make harmony. Rounded ones knock the time with a polite clack that never insists. Flat ones whisper shh after each phrase. Once in a while, a pebble rolls, a single syllable traveling downstream to tell the next bend the story of this one. The story never changes and never repeats. Water is good at that paradox. So is sleep. Close by, cattails keep a soft metronome, leaves rubbing leaf. Frogs lift their throats and lower them, little pulleys moving with the grace of practiced work. A nightbird crosses above the spray and edits the score with a quick notation. Here, listen closer. You do automatically. When the bird is gone, the extra listening stays. That's how attention trains you when you let the river help. From town, other instruments enter one by one, as if the conductor, who is nobody, raised two hands you can't see. The bell tower, one note patient, measures the hour and then sits back down. A diner jukebox, off, truly off, still vibrates a ghost chord in its own cabinet from a song it liked 4 afternoons ago, and the cabinet shares that chord with the window glass, and the window glass passes it into the street like a scarf. Neon hum from a sign that has decided to spell only the idea of open tonight. One letter glowing as a nightlight for strangers who decided against leaving, and for locals who forgot why they went out. A refrigerator condenser murmurs in an upstairs apartment, steady and sure. The sound of leftovers agreeing to be tomorrow's first meal. Even the forest adds, but only by subtraction. Pine boughs take the sharp off the wind, edit out the sibilants, leave you the vowels, ah, oh, ooh, the shapes your mouth makes when it relaxes. Somewhere a porch swing clicks in its chain as someone leans back to see if the stars kept their appointments. They did. Stars are punctual when it matters and fashionably late when it doesn't. The fall's main phrase broadens. You hear the surface, yes, but also the column under the surface. The water hundreds of thin streams wide that enter together and fall as a choir of smalls. Downstream, the river rearranges itself like sheets after a rollover. The riffles catch air and let it go, catch and let. The softest exchange of vows. I hold. I release. Again. On a flat rock, an old transistor radio sits, its antenna a brave reed. It's off. It contributes by not interfering. Silence is an absence here. It's an instrument tuned everywhere. Sue's repaired it earlier. He left it to learn the night's key. It's learning. You notice a second rhythm hiding in the first. It's your breathing, finally synced with the coves. In, out, pour, pool, in, out, pour, pool. The pee in pool matches the little puff in your exhale at the end. The part people rarely count, but the river does. Rivers love the ends of breaths. They make space. A child's giggle, late, way past bedtime, skips like a stone from the far bank to yours. It trips 3 times, Giggly falls, and then sinks into mud where frogs keep dreams for safekeeping. On the near shore, someone's dog shakes off lake water in an allegro that refuses to apologize for joy. The dog lies down. The tempo returns to Largo. Over everything, crickets, 1,000 watches that forgot to tick and started to sing instead. Their rhythm isn't regular, it's reliable. There is a difference. Reliable means you can lean on it with your eyes closed. You do. Behind the eyes, the library shelves get farther apart and it takes longer to reach the end of an aisle. That's okay. You're not trying to get anywhere. The archivist, who could conduct and chooses not to, holds the candle low. Flame meets water glow and decides not to compete. Listen for the part where the river says your name without using it, they murmur. You do. It's there. It does not pull. It includes. At the foot of the falls, people have left offerings that are not clutter. A smooth stone and a stack of 3, a paper boat folded from a shopping list, milk, eggs, light bulbs, call mom, a jar with holes punched in its lid so a June of fireflies could breathe between 2 lives, captured and released. Everything here either returns to motion or becomes a local. Nothing stays out of place because place is generous. If you stood here every night, someone has, you would learn the slight variance that weather brings. Thicker songs when the thaw feeds the stream. Thinner, quicker ones when heat plays its long notes. Winter writes in rests and reverb. Autumn tunes the whole thing to the key of letting go. Tonight is the key of enough. The drawer could go on because the river does. The archivist lets it for a few more measures. Your pulse finds the downbeat. Your shoulders send back their baggage claim tickets unclaimed. When the drawer finally slides toward closed, the water keeps playing because nothing can box it. Not even a magical piece of furniture. And that's fine. Bedtime loves continuity. You hear the falls recede down the hall of the archive and back into the woods where they live. And you know, with the kind of knowing that makes sleep not only possible, but easy, that the song will be there in the morning. Exactly different. Exactly the same. The handle on this drawer is a ribbon of stained glass. Triangles, circles, a few shapes that haven't settled on names, soldered together so gently the seams look like lines in a map you might dream and forget on purpose. When the archivist eases it open, the candle does something new. The flame becomes 3 small flames for an instant, then one again, like a wink from a kaleidoscope that decided to practice manners. Color arrives first. Not the loud kind that elbows, the kind that pours, soft as sunrise passing through a jar of honey. Buildings in the archive's picture lean at playful angles, as if gravity and whimsy negotiated a truce. Streets thread themselves into friendly spirals. Signs shed their words and keep only their glow. The bell tower stretches, then settles, as if it remembered yoga. The sky folds and refolds like a paper crane learning how to be more sky. Some storms, the archivist says, choose to be weather. Some choose to be art. This was the art kind. Around the town, corners soften. Edges practice being edges without jab. Triangles, the cautious shapes from our earlier chapter, float past as lantern kites, with strings attached to nothing in particular and still somehow anchored. A lamppost lifts from its bolts by an inch, reconsidering the job description, then sets itself down, satisfied. Yes, light. Yes, here. If you had been there, and in this drawer you are there at a bedtime distance, you would have felt your feet remain yours. You would have felt your balance wander. Then remember. The world didn't fall apart. It unfurled. The diner stools turned in a slow, fair ride circle, just enough to let regulars discover new favorite angles for old conversations. The soda machine in the shack whispered "door" to itself and answered, "Not tonight." Neon drew cursive across the sky and then underlined itself, giggling. In the middle of the main square, a bench learned to float. Not away, just high enough that the smallest kid could swing their legs without touching anything. Town hands steadied the bench not because it needed it, but because steadiness is a habit Gravity Falls keeps even for fun. Someone set a thermos on the air beside the bench and it stayed, pouring steam into the gentle draft that played at being wind. Clocks, normally the most serious furniture, loosened. The bell tower rang not the hour, but the feeling. One chime for "we're together," one for "we'll fix what wiggles," one for "let it be weird if weird is kind." Paper birds flew out of a schoolroom and perched along a telephone wire that had turned into a necklace for the sky. Each bird blinked, a crease, a fold. Each bird remembered a child's hands and believed in those hands enough to keep flying. A mural no one had painted appeared on the library wall. Night stitched to day, stars stitched to pine needles, an eye-shaped aperture from the last chapter set safely in a corner, like a camera set down on a table, while friends dance. The mural shed no messages. It was the message: we can hold more than one thing at once. Color and quiet, tilt and trust, change and tea. People moved through the spectacle with the care of museum guards who loved their museum. Doors were propped and not forced. Laughter came in 2 volumes only. Soft close, soft far. Someone brought out chalk. Triangles became hopscotch. Someone else set a vinyl on a battery player and chose a track with a bass line like a deep breath. The record wobbled on an air-tilting tabletop and stayed true to itself anyway. So did everyone. If there were creatures who usually prefer shadows, they tried daylight hats. A raccoon wore an expression like, "I'm not even stealing, I'm borrowing your surprise." The gnomes formed a conga line, discovered circles again, declared them the official shape of this event, took a vote, forgot the results, danced anyway. The 4-eyed deer walked right through the square, rested each pair of eyes on each quadrant of the sky, and nodded. Corners intact. And the dangerous thing? The triangle, with the grin you read about in other tellings? In this version, he is a constellation behind glass, a shape the Archivist has already moved to the high shelf and labeled "Observed, Noted, Kept Away from Pillows." Influence becomes outline. Outline becomes ornament. The archive is good at this kind of safety, the kind that knows names, honors them, and chooses gentler ones for bedtime. Odd physics made small allowances. Someone tossed a paper airplane, and the air returned it 3 times before letting it go to the roof it wanted. A hat floated to a lamppost and lingered there, a crown for a useful thing. A person who always felt too heavy for their thoughts suddenly felt their thoughts agree to carry half the weight. I was the miracle. Not spectacle, but redistribution. On the lake, the lanterns from Chapter 6 returned without being summoned. They know when fantasy needs a floor. They formed a constellation on water and spelled the word "okay" in a language only nerves can read. Shoregrass applauded in shh. The falls in Chapter 12 adjusted their tempo to match a human heart at peace. Every town, the Archivist murmurs, has a day when it becomes a dream of itself. This was that day, except it was night, and the dream thought to tuck people in rather than wake them up. Weirdness didn't chase, it courted. And the town said the good yes. The yes that keeps a hand on the doorknob and the other on a friend's shoulder. Eventually, color decided it had showed off enough for one evening. The sky folded itself back into fewer shades. The bench drifted down and remembered legs. The clocks picked up their hours with the same nonchalance with which they had set them down. Triangles stacked themselves into bunting under the eaves of the shack and agreed to be decoration. The mural listened to the wall, learned to be a wall, and stayed. People yawned in chorus. Someone said, "Same time next never," and everyone understood. Lightning bugs waited until the last person turned for home, then flicked a final sequence. 6 on, 6 off. A good night in numbers. The archivist closes the stained glass drawer with a pad of the thumb on each color. A little blessing for red, a murmur for blue, a nod for green. The candle returns to a single flame and looks somehow proud. You feel the chapters settle inside you, not as a memory of danger avoided, but as proof that even the strangest night can end with doors locked softly and bread set to rise for morning. On the shelf, the label under the drawer glows for an instant and reads, "Weird, made gentle." This handle is a loop of twine with a pressed clover tied into the knot. The drawer opens on a temperature the body recognizes without dates. End of summer warm. Not hot enough to hurry. Not cool enough to call for sleeves. Crickets keep the minutes. Somewhere a grill says its last sizzle for the season and then rests. Packing begins in places houses keep for goodbyes. A table that has seen elbows and maps and cake becomes a staging ground for piles. Keep, share, later laugh. The mystery shack, respectful, gives everyone a little extra shelf space for laying out decisions. Drawers refuse to stick. Closets exhale. Even the sock basket, which usually has opinions, goes along with the plan. Mabel has a system that looks like a parade. Sweaters roll themselves into color wheels. Trinkets audition for the honor of traveling. Even the glitter chooses to stay in the jar because it has learned to love the mantle dust. Into one box go bracelets with friend histories too long to be written in a margin. Oh, into another go paper, stars she cut but hasn't named yet. They can learn their names on the road. She writes on the flaps in bubble letters. Soft stuff handled with joy. Dipper's system looks like a map. He lays his things in a grid on the bed. Journal carefully. Notebook well fed with pencil. Compass. That cardboard and thread tool that turns sky into units of tri. He puts the compass down, picks it up, puts it down. He adds a small rock from the river, flat as a thought you can skip. He writes on the flap in plain letters, "Tools do not stack." Then he strikes the "not" smirks and writes smaller. Okay, stack carefully. So's moves through with a roll of tape and a pocket of labels, the high priest of which box gets which voice. He writes in big, friendly marker, "Kitchen heavy but happy." He tightens a hinge that picked today to remember squeaks, not to fix it for himself, but to spare whoever opens this door next from learning that squeak. On the porch, he leaves a basket labeled "Free to Good Home," and by evening it is empty, because Gravity Falls is good homes by habit. Wendy appears like dusk, arrives without announcing, brings with her the thought that this was always going to be okay. She takes the heaviest box first and doesn't make a point of it. She says, "You'll be back," as if it's the same sentence as "you were here," because in this town, those two are synonyms. She presses a small coil of rope into Dipper's hand. "In case you ever want to tie a memory to something," she says, then ruins the sentiment on purpose by adding, "or a sandwich," and everyone laughs the laugh that keeps tears from being lonely. The town gets ready too. The bell tower tunes itself to a softer chime for the day, respectful of cardboard. The diner puts 2 extra slices of pie in a to-go box by accident. The post office slides a blank postcard across the counter with a wink that means mail is an excuse for staying connected. Use us. The library prints out a list of late fees that mysteriously reads $0, because we already got the stories back. Toward evening, the lantern road restarts itself without being asked. Jars appear along fences, lights within set to remember. Kids with nets gather fireflies, not to keep them, but to count how many blinks fit in a goodbye. The path to the lake looks like a dotted line in a treasure map, where the treasure is the part of your heart that stays when you go. At the water, a flotilla grows. Paper boats, waxed at the seams, each carrying a note nobody will read. Thank you for the creek. See you at the meteor shower next year. Tell the big tree I said hi. Lanterns take to the surface, accept their roles. The falls sing the key we learned earlier. Enough. The frog choir performs their standard. We will be here. Old rituals return. The bridge pause. Breathe in the middle love's breath. The triple wave, to the pines, to the roof of the shack, to the bell tower's window no one ever sees open. The cuff pull, someone will tell you, it'll get cooler at night on the road, and they will be right. New rituals invent themselves. The sweater exchange, wear mine when you miss me, I'll wear yours when I don't. The seed pocket, take 3 from this cone and plant 1 wherever you stop for longer than a week. Fireflies rise, not like sparks that forget their source, but like notes returning to a melody after a rest. They drift over the lake until the surface looks like a star chart for a different kind of sky. Dipper points, then stops himself. Not everything needs labeling tonight. Mabel labels anyway and whispers. That's the constellation Cozy. That's the constellation Don't Cry Till After Pie. That's the constellation We Made It. Suze sneaks a fix even now. The dock's third board from the end had a proud nail. It has retired from pride. He pats the wood the way you pat a dog you want to stay home, because the dog is old and loved and will do exactly that. Wendy leans on a post, silhouette cut out of twilight. When you come back, she says, the hill will still be taller from the top than the bottom. That's how hills work. That's how here works. It sounds like a riddle. It isn't. It's instructions for how to carry a place without it getting heavy. From behind, the archivist lets the candle draw a thin stripe of light across the surface of the drawer image, start to finish. It looks like you could pick it up by that stripe and carry the whole lake with one careful hand. You don't have to. The lake knows where it lives. It also knows where you live, which is partly here, partly in the rooms you'll sleep in next, partly in that in-between where footsteps and wheels make the same steady hush. Boxes close. Tape size. Hugs happen in every length and strength. The last lantern blinks twice. There's always a show-off, and the path home from the lake lights itself, because no one should walk back in the dark after a good cry. The drawer's twine handle brushes the archivist's knuckles as it settles. A tiny spark tucks itself into the knot. Fireflies, the archivist says softly, are just summer's way of promising winter won't forget us. You believe them. You don't need proof. The promise hums. The next handle is a little polished cleat, the kind a boat's line loops around when it decides to stay. Salt, imagined, remembered, finds the air. The candle flares, then calms, as if learning sea breath, in long, out longer. At the edge of the drawer's picture, a dock that doesn't mind departures. It has practiced the art of sturdy. Flex when you must, hold when you can. A boat waits, not impatiently. Boats rarely are. Its paint remembers 1,000 small hands that sketched fish on hulls while grown-ups loaded crates. Its name is a secret between it and the water. Names like that work harder than the ones you paint big. 2 men stand with the air between them, behaving like a third person they both know well. They carry different tools for the same job, to look out, to look after. One has maps that he updates, even when the land hasn't moved. One has a compass he checks less to find north than to confirm he still wants to go. Both have pockets that hold coins, screws, and a folded photo that didn't know it was a truce when the shutter clicked and became one later. They step aboard. The deck says the sailors hello, a handful of gentle complaints from boards that like being stepped on. Lines are cast off without drama. The engine clears its throat and decides to be reliable. Shore pulls back with the friendliness of someone who knows you have to leave to feel how much you like returning. The ocean out here is night's cousin. Big, honest. Hard to explain to someone who hasn't sat with it a while. Waves move under the boat like thoughts that would be worries if you didn't have someone to tell them to. They become conversation instead. Stars reorganize into lanes no chart would trust, and every heart does. The boat aims for a horizon that refuses to be one thing. That's fine. Horizons are not obligations. You expect noise. You get rhythm. The hulls slap. The waters answer. A rope's tiny percussion against the mast. A kettle on a gimbal, insisting on tea regardless of latitude. The men don't narrate, they coordinate. One leans into the wheel, the other leans into the weather. Both lean into remembering. Their silences dovetail like good joinery. When words arrive, they are sanded. Sentence, breath, sentence, smile that doesn't require teeth. On the second night, a fog rolls in, courteous as a librarian. Quiet, purposeful, excellent at reducing volume. The horn offers a single, low note, less warning than companionship. We're here. Something answers from far starboard. The answer sounds like a mountain humming into a bottle. Charts wait politely. Compass holds steady. The boat finds its slow stitch seam through wet wool and follows it. Fog allows this when you behave. Between swells, small flashes rise. Dolphins. Delighted to be the punctuation of a long sentence. They race the bow not to win, but to decorate motion. One does the fish version of a somersault and lands with a comment the water translates as, "Same time tomorrow." The boat winks yes in wake. Every ocean crossing teaches the same practical mysticism. Repetition is revelation. Morning, noon, stars, haul, tie, check, heat, cool, cook. Patterns turn into peace, the way dough turns into bread. The older man checks the engine by listening harder than metal requires. The other checks the sky by counting the beats between three blinking things only he noticed. Both count on each other and on the boat, and on the fact that the sea has seen worse. Plans succeed, and better plans fail, and treats courtesy as the only real skill. Sometimes the past tries to board. It throws a grappling hook shaped like "remember when" and yanks. They let it, then unhook together and coil the rope the way you coil any rope you plan to use again without letting it tangle you now. They don't baptize the ocean with arguments. They salt the arguments down into one-liners that fit in lunch pails. You were right that time. I didn't say sorry for that one yet. Next time we'll measure twice. The water takes these like offerings and returns calm, which is all you want from water at night. The stars do their work. They always have. They lie about their positions in small ways. Parallax, shimmer. But they never lie about being there. A sky you can shoot with a sextant is a sky you can trust with your shoulders. The younger man marks an angle and writes a number and turns that number into a dot on a paper that won't stay still because the boat refuses to stop being a boat. The older man makes coffee and adds too much sugar because the night asked for sweet. Nobody complains. The coffee agrees. They pass a ship. A great city of a thing, lit like a holiday doing 20 knots up the aisle. The boat dips in a bow as if to say, "We see you. We choose smaller. Smaller is not less." The city ship answers in radio formalities, words that mean nothing except, "No collision today," which is love if you squint. On the fourth dusk, flying fish thread themselves into the air and pretend to be birds for 3 seconds apiece. The men applaud them with the quiet of people who have learned not to spook joy. On the fifth dawn, the sea goes glass, and both men lie to themselves about not wanting to reach for oars just to feel oar water. On the sixth night, clouds pull a magician's scarf across all the stars, and the compass sits there like a friend who didn't go anywhere when the lights went out. There are repairs. There always are. A hinge that gives up pride. A gasket that wants a better story. A length of line that frays because friction is honest work. Both men fix with the competence of people who know the poetry happens when you get the prose right. Tighten, seal, splice. The boat keeps the compliments in its bilge and pretends indifference. Boats are shy, praise them anyway. And sometimes there is play. A bottle message written and tossed, not to be found, but to be sent. Sending is enough. A contest to name clouds. The dragon, the sandwich, the one that looks like the roofline of the shack if the shack had sails. A tune hummed that the sea steals and gives back as rhythm under the hull. A game of what's for dinner if it isn't what we have, won by the person who describes soup so well, the soup you actually have tastes like the description. When land finally floats up from the edge of the world like a calm whale, both men pretend they didn't doubt it would. The line of dark greens and browns and roof specks holds steady as if to say, yes, still here. Yes, you can put your weight down now. The docks on this shore are cousins to the one they left. Same scuffs, same gull with a consultancy practice, same ladder you mustn't skip the second rung of. They tie up with that satisfaction only boats and argument share, secure, not strangled. They step off. Knees remember. The earth feels cockeyed for a minute, then forgives you for loving water. Hands meet hands the way long stories find commas. They will unload, reload, repair, refuel. They will set out again. Or they will stay and sit in chairs that do not move and talk about waves that did. Either choice counts as answer. Before the drawer closes, the archivist lets the candlelight run along the rope coil one last time. Then across the map pinned with pins in no particular pattern except the one two brothers decided to call ours. Across the ocean, the archivist says, is just another way of saying through to the other side of each other. The boat in the picture rocks once with no wind and then forgets it did. The cleat handle is warm when it leaves your fingers. Somewhere far behind this chapter and also inside it, the falls continue. The town breathes. The pines keep their tall promises. Ahead another drawer waits, the kind with a handle shaped like a star and a nest at the same time. Not yet. The candle asks for one breath. You give it two. And then everything, sea to shore to shelf to pillow, whispers the same small word you can finally hear without effort. Rest. The last handle waits exactly where your hand expects it. It is shaped like two things at once, a star you could steer by and a nest you could rest in. When the archivist turns it, the motion is half map, half lullaby. The drawer opens without a sound. The candle rises without a flicker. The room tilts, no, not tilts, breathes, the way a forest breathes when dusk remembers how to be kind. Pines. They arrive not all at once, but the way night comes to needles, here, then there, then everywhere, before anyone feels the need to announce it. Tall without boasting, close without crowding, the pines make a cathedral that forgot to be a building and remembered to be air. Trunks and columns, branches for rafters, a ceiling stitched in green-black with small windows punched out by stars. Every step lands on something springy and forgiving. You are allowed to be softer here than you were 5 minutes ago. The pines of Gravity Falls are keepers, not of secrets, the way a locked box is, but of stories, the way a lap is. Every ring inside every trunk is a circle drawn around a summer and labeled safe. Hold your palm a few inches from the bark. You'll feel the heat of the day stored and given back in portions, like tea poured for a friend. Close your eyes and lean. Not to take, but to share weight. And the tree leans back in the polite language of beings who have time. The forest speaks in catalog, and every entry is permission. Needles, small arrows that only point to calm. Sap, a letter that always sticks to the page. Shade, a blanket that learned patience. Cones, containers for futures that are never in a hurry. Roots, agreements written in the soil between things that can't walk and things that can. Somewhere in the middle distance, the falls carry the song you learned in Chapter 12, thick even, the measure your breath decided to match and then forgot it had decided, because matching felt like remembering. Somewhere above, constellations from Chapter 7 thread their quiet lines across the stratosphere, and if you were to trace them with a finger, you would touch not just stars, but also the margin notes Dipper left behind in pencil. A laugh at the corner of one angle, a small circle around a brighter point, a dotted arrow toward curiosity. That map is up there forever now. That's how certain maps work. And stitched across that sky, the sweater constellations from Chapter 8 glow in threads that only yield to bedtime. The comforter draped over the Big Dipper, the Tada winking exactly once each hour. The three nice things you thought today braided between two dim stars so they would not feel left out. One cuff of a cardigan dangles from Orion in pure defiance of myth, and it suits him. The universe looks better in knit. Glitter, mostly invisible, has nevertheless made commitments. Down at ground honest level, gnomes rehearse goodbyes even though no one is leaving tonight. They are not practicing exactly. They are celebrating the ritual of it. A circle that never closes, a wave that means hello and also see you in the morning. The four-eyed deer watches the rehearsal from halfway behind a trunk, all four eyes open and unbothered. Two for now, two for later. Houses are here too, if you know how to look. Not the siding and shingles, those rest where they should, but the feelings that live inside them, gone out for a stroll. The way light from windows goes out for a stroll on the first snow. The staircase leans between two pines for the pleasure of connecting. A porch swing finds a branch that fits. A doorknob, round and friendly, hangs on a knot and gleams like the moon has chosen it for practice. Houses that remember do not mind sharing their gentlest ideas with trees that remember more. The lantern road from Chapter 6 arrives with perfect manners. Jars dangle at odd heights from branches, each a slow star in a gravity they can ignore, because the forest allows exceptions when exceptions are kind. There's a path of glow just wide enough for two people to walk side by side and say nothing. Silence here does not have edges. It has places to sit. Sue's workshop habits have leaked into the woods in harmless ways. Someone, you know who, has sanded the splinter off a trail rail where a child will grab it first and left a pencil mark on a root with the quietest label, "Step here." A bench, made of a fallen trunk with care and a hatchet, carries a single note written in a large friendly marker. This wood is done working. It just gets to be. The bench agrees with a creak that is gratitude in oak. Wendy has left a coil of rope in a hollow to teach the next person how to tie a thought to a place and let both breathe. She has also left nothing in 3 other hollows because some hollows should stay hollow on principle. Her wind-bite laugh slips through the needles on an updraft, and the trees store it in a crook. ready for later nights when someone needs to borrow courage by ear. If Bill comes to mind at all, and his category of shape sometimes does, it is as a geometry lesson, hung up on a high branch where only owls can reach it. Triangles here are tents and kites and cookies you slice for sharing. Eyes are instruments you use to watch the meteor shower. Riddles keep their teeth tucked in. The forest doesn't ban sharpness. It simply enforces bedtime. The pines themselves, old, patient, hilariously uninterested in being impressed, hum in at least 3 registers. The ground hum, roots talking to stones, we have this. The middle hum, trunks tipping the smallest bit in wind, will bend. The top hum, needles combing night. We remember how to sing. When the wind moves from right to left, the song says stay. When it moves from left to right, the song also says stay. The only leaving that counts tonight is the leaving of tension from jaw and shoulder. That strange luggage the day insists on, unstrapped now, set down without ceremony, reclaimed by moss. The Archivist doesn't speak for a long time. They don't need to. They keep the candle at a height that makes a space for dark to be dark, and for you to be unafraid of it. When they do speak, their words are small tools set on a cloth in order. This is the part that doesn't end. It will be here when you forget it, and when you remember it. It does not require your attention to keep loving you. A pine cone drops somewhere off to the right. A soft clack muffled by needles, the quietest period at the end of a generous sentence. A second twilight, Gravity Fall's favorite trick, folds over the forest even though it is already night, blue over blue, rest over rest. It is impossible to be hurried inside this lair. Clocks shrug and go bird-watching. To-do lists walk themselves to the river and come back with only 3 lines left, all of them gentleness. In your pocket. A pocket you have in this place, even if your pajamas do not. That little paper star Mabel tucked into the journals, Chapter 5, begins to pulse once each 5 breaths with the most polite radiance. It matches the glow from a jar on a branch that matches the reflection of a lantern on the lake that matches a low star 2 degrees north of the bell tower's shadow if you happen to be standing exactly where Dipper drew his most patient line. None of this requires effort. It requires noticing, and noticing here is identical to being alive. If you turn slowly, you will see them all. The dock with the proud nail that learned humility, Chapter 14. Now content as a board can be. The boat from Chapter 15 leaping at its moor, dream tugging on lines that would forgive worse. The diner window reflecting the forest as if pancakes grew on trees, and maybe they do. The bell tower holding midnight like a teacup, saucer ready for any spill of star. And heart close, inside everything, but also outside it. The sense that Gravity Falls is not the place you leave. It is the place that learned to ride home in you. You carry it the way you carry the smell of wood smoke in your hair a day longer than expected. You carry it like a song that hums you back. You carry it like muscle memory. Turn here, breathe here, soften here. The Archivist looks up through the pines, through the knit and the map, through the soft geometry of a universe that tries every night to explain itself to anyone with a blanket. Eternal, they say. But not like a lecture. More like a sigh that made a promise and then kept it. Not because it is forever in ours. Because it has already learned how to return. The candle does a small thing then. One that candles only do when a chapter is exactly ready. The flame becomes a pine needle for the length of a blink. When it is flame again, the needle still shines in your memory, and that is the point. The drawer slides toward home. The forest does not go anywhere. It steps back an inch so you can find the hallway again. The way a hug loosens to let you walk and still counts as a hug all the same. Everything waits, everything stays, everything. Pines, stars, falls, jars, rooms, ropes, maps, sweaters, benches, boats, bells. Whispers the word the archive was built to say for nights like this. Sleep. You are back among shelves that know your footfall. Back with labels that shine like friendly constellations at eye level. Back with a candle that has been patient with time in the way only flame can be. Present, then present again. Somehow older, somehow unchanged. The archivist walks with you not toward an exit, there is no such thing here, but toward a gentler threshold. The kind a dream puts its hand on so you know which side of it you're on, without being startled by the shift. Drawers you open tonight settle with the contentment of pages read aloud. Drawers you did not open glow in a way that means later is a kind of yes. The floor has memorized the speed of your breathing and edits its creaks to match. At a small desk you hadn't noticed before, the archivist opens a ledger the size of a placemat. The ink in it is the color of the road between town and lake after rain. They write one line, which is not a title and not a test. It is a receipt for rest. Tonight you wandered safely. They blot the line with a square of paper that already knows how to do it. They fold the paper into a tiny boat and slip it into your pocket alongside the star. The boat is for crossing any puddle of worry you wake inside. The star is for everything else. 2 gifts, the archivist says. Neither heavy. You pass the drawer with the stained glass handle, chapter 13, and it gives off a last faint color, as if a window down the street turned off its lamp a second after you stopped looking. You pass the journal drawer, chapter 5, and a page turns itself with that dry creak sound pencil makes when it moves across paper in exactly the right hand. You pass the workshop, chapter 9, and the soldering iron sighs its cooling sigh, satisfied to have mended what it mended. The bell from the house's drawer, chapter 3, taps itself once, purely because it likes your company. Before you go, the archivist says in a voice you have learned to trust because it has never hurried you. A few notices posted for all sleepers. They point to a corkboard. On it, if you wake in the middle, start at the Lantern Road. The first jar is always within reach. If a triangle shows up, it's a kite tonight, weather permitting. If you can't find the falls, listen for refrigerators. They know the key of enough. If you're lonely, put a sweater over the map. Warmth is a kind of direction. If you wander far, take a pine cone from the basket by the door. Cones are portable assurances. Below these, a last card with 3 sentences written in tidy block letters. Nothing here will chase you. Everything here will wait. You don't have to finish to be finished for tonight. They take up the candle as if it weighed the same as a kiss on the forehead. I will walk you to the edge, they offer, and you let them. Not because you need help, but because being walked with is a luxury no one should outgrow. Past the shelf of careful bottles, river sound, floorboard laugh, porch light, each stoppered and labeled, but easy to open if needed. Past a coat rack that holds exactly 1 jacket, sized to you, woven of thread and memory. If you put it on, it feels like having been expected in every place you love. Past a window that looks out onto a night you recognize, it is yours, and a moon that behaves as if it has a schedule, with your name on it. The threshold is a rug with a pine needle stitched along the border. The archivist smooths the fringe with the back of a hand. We keep the sharp corners on high shelves, they say again, an old sentence made new by proximity. Then softer. We keep watch too. Go ahead. You pause. There is always one more question when goodbye is the kind you can return from. You don't ask it. You don't need to. The archivist answers anyway, the way librarians do when the answer is older than you're asking. Yes, they whisper. Whenever you come back, we'll start exactly where resting begins. The candle does what candles do when the moment is right. It gets smaller in a way that makes the room gentler rather than darker. Smell of pine, sound of page, weight of covers inviting your own shape back. Somewhere very close, the bell tower chimes not an hour, but a message that only sleepers hear. You made it to the quiet. And then the final acts, unremarkable and perfect. The archivist draws the last drawer half shut, never all the way. Books don't like finales. The candle becomes an ember, becomes a memory, becomes a promise to relight itself when needed. The door that isn't a door opens the way a window opens to summer. You step through into your room, which is now the archive in miniature. A shelf of dreams you can reach from the pillow. A pine cone on the sill holding a secret that is only ever kindness. A jar that isn't lit and doesn't have to be. A map folded under your hand that will not leave a crease on your cheek. The bed recognizes you. The night accepts your terms. Behind you, from the library that will not leave because it knows how to stay, the archivist's voice travels the shortest distance in the world between care and sleep, and arrives with the precision of a blanket being pulled to your chin. Good night beneath the pines, they say. We'll keep the stories small and the stars near. Breathe in, breathe out. You are home. And because the archive is honest, and the forest is patient, and the town is kind, and the boat is tied, and the bell is content, and the sweater holds its warmth, and the map keeps gentle secrets, and the lanterns have memorized your name without speaking it. You do.